All right, today we're tackling something really heavy, something that gets right to the core of our justice system. We're going to break down a moment that's, well, it's more than just a legal ending. It's a huge question for all of us.
It all starts with this number, 17. And no, that's not just a statistic. That's 17 people executed in Florida, just in 2025. This makes it the deadliest year in the state's recent history. And that single stark fact, it's the backdrop for everything else we're about to get into.
You know, it's easy to see a number like that and just move on. But behind every single one of those numbers, there's a person, a story. So today, we're going to focus on just one of those stories. A story that, after so many years, is about to come to its final, quiet conclusion.
And that story, it belongs to a man named Mark Allen Geralds. On December 9th at 6 p.m., his life is scheduled to end. Now, this isn't just some random event. His execution is the final act in a really long, painful, and legally grueling process. So how did it get to this point? Well, Geralds was convicted of capital murder. And as you can see from the definition, this isn't the same as murder in a legal sense. It's a very specific charge for a crime that is so calculated, so violent, that it crosses this incredibly high bar for the death penalty. In his trial, this wasn't some case built on maybes. We're talking a trail of hard physical proof. We're talking unmistakable witness testimonies. The source material even calls it a relentless weight of truth. And the jury? They were unanimous. They heard it all and came to one conclusion, a verdict that sealed his fate. But, that verdict, it was really just the beginning of a whole other chapter. And that brings us to something really important to understand about the system. Justice is almost never instant. The second that verdict was read, it kicked off a whole new phase. Not just for Geralds, but for the victim's family too. A phase defined by the slow, grinding gears of the legal system. Just look at this timeline. It really shows you how it all played out. You have the crime, then the conviction, and then decades. Decades on death row. During that time, he filed appeal after appeal. And make no mistake, each one was looked at, picked apart by the courts, argued over, and in the end, every single one was denied. And each time it was back to square one, waiting for this date.
So, as that final date gets closer and closer, the feeling in the air, it's not celebratory, not at all. It's described as this heavy, somber weight. And this finality, it brings out all these really complicated, really conflicting feelings and viewpoints.
And you can really see the two main perspectives here. On one side, you have supporters who call this accountability. For them, it's justice. It took way too long, but it's finally being delivered. Then, on the other side, you have critics who see it as a pretty grim reminder of a system that's built on, taking a life.
But what about the family of the victim? I think a lot of us assume that an execution brings closure. But what we're seeing here suggests something way more complicated. It's described not as relief, but as this quiet, hollow finality. It's an ending for sure, but one that leaves behind a kind of emptiness.
And that really gets us to the heart of this whole thing, the price of silence. So let's zoom out a little from this one case and look at the bigger picture, the consequences for all of us, and this deep paradox that sits at the center of capital punishment.
This quote just nails that paradox, doesn't it? A punishment meant to end pain, yet one that reverberates. Think about that. The death penalty is supposed to be the final word, the end of the pain. But instead, its effects just ripple out. They create consequences that are felt for years and years.
So what are those ripples? Well, for the communities involved, old wounds get torn right back open. For society as a whole, it makes us face the real cost of this kind of justice. And that big question, is real closure even possible? That just sort of hangs in the air long after it's all over.
And so, we come full circle. On December 9th, Mark Allen Geralds is set to become the 18th person executed in what is already Florida's deadliest year. His story ends, another life taken by a system that, at its core, is designed to respond to loss with more loss.
Which leaves us all with one last really tough question to think about. In this incredibly complex, painful process of seeking justice, who actually wins? And maybe the more important question is, who is the one left to pay that final price of silence?